The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the LMI Best Practice Series. This is our third session on the Teleometrics online webinars. Today's session is on using teleometrics as an LMI or a leadership program. Our presenter today for today's webinar will again be Ken Fries, but before I turn the session over to him, there are a few housekeeping items I want to cover. Starting off, everybody will be muted because we are recording this session for future review. There will be time for questions. As we get to certain points, Kent will ask if anybody has any questions. At that point, on your control panel, if you raise your hand, I will call on you and I will unmute you. You can also send your questions by using the chat box at the bottom of your control panel. So either way, it generally will show up and I'll still call on you. So that's pretty simple. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to turn this over to Dr. Fries.
Thank you, Sam. And I will show. There we go. Okay, now I went full screen this time. You should be able to see it full screen. Is that correct, Sam?
That is correct.
Good. All right, great. Well, hey, it's great to be here for our third webinar of the Teleo online series. And as Sam said, my goal today is to walk through the process of using the 6 core assessments as part of a leadership development, sort of a standalone leadership development program. I do want to explore some other options, though, like single workshops and shorter or longer versions. We'll go through all that. So we'll talk primarily about the process, the sales process, and the delivery process around doing this. And as a sort of a next phase, I want to talk to you about the end of this is expanding into perhaps a true Teleo Achieving Leader program for those of you on the call or those who are interested. So let's get started. So our agenda today is let's go through the Achieving Leader program, the value of telemetrics as a standalone leadership program, and look at options or approaches, and also, of course, give you plenty of time for questions and answers. All of you, I don't know if there's anybody new on the call, but this is my bio, a little bit more about me and where I come from. I think you all know this, but looking at the list, I think everybody has been on before, so we'll go past that. So the Achieving Leader program. The idea here is that the total program, I talk about this within the session here, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And what this allows you to do by using the entire model of leadership, you're really replicating the original study and showing a benchmark of individual leadership against this high achieving standard and enabling people to see how they compare to that standard in a broad way. That's a much more powerful, I think, approach than targeted areas. Although the targeted areas doing 1 or 2 programs can be very powerful, the overall process is extremely powerful, and I've spent I don't know, probably the last 10 years delivering the program this way. So I'm a fan of it, and I have a lot of experience doing it. The other side to this is, I mentioned here, it does provide targeted feedback to busy leaders. We know everybody's very busy with their day jobs. Developmental programs often are important to leaders, but they can be a little overwhelmed. I think part of the power of this is driving to specific objective feedback on where they need to focus efforts, and that can drive goal setting and your coaching and all your other work with them. The process I'll also show uses familiar win-win agreements, the LMI goal setting process, and combines that with Teleo feedback. And in the end, this is truly a culture change process for an organization, and I'll get into a little bit more of what that means as we get into the program. And finally, there is the ability for the program results in aggregate, meaning we take all the results, all the feedback, and we compile those results into one set of summaries around these leadership areas, can provide a powerful cultural snapshot for a CEO or a senior leadership team or even a board of directors, depending on the organization. to give them good feedback about what they have, and as I say here at the end, is what they have, what they want, looking to the vision of the future, challenges they've had in the past that may not be what they want. And again, this can target future development, give you additional sales opportunities. You guys have all seen this, the performance curve. Teleo, when you're replicating this study, you're really comparing them to this benchmark standard of managers, which shows low achievers, average achievers, and high achievers. And within the model, we're comparing them to this benchmark standard to essentially show them the difference between where they are at in their own leadership versus high achieving leaders, and then from there close the gap through goal setting. Very straightforward. We do that through these 6 assessments that you're all familiar with now as the 3rd session here. These 6 assessments provide a complete picture of leadership in key areas coming out of this study, and from that, again, driving goal setting into these areas or into individual needs that were identified prior to the program. For instance, with the senior leader indicating certain needs for individuals in the program can help this combination of the overall feedback as well as areas you want to target through this feedback in helping with goal setting. And there is one last piece there, the decision making. I haven't talked about this before, but there is a nice, pretty powerful module available in the overall Teleo series called group decision making, which can be useful, and I'll talk about that a little more as we go. So let's look at possible process alternatives. Now today, I'm not going to jump into the details of each program, although I am going to show you an example of slides and some materials that I use for the leadership values piece. But mainly I'm going to talk about the process and how this is delivered as a program and what the options are. Here's an example of a possible process workflow. A lot of this may look familiar to anyone who's used to delivering LMI programs. I think there are a lot of similarities, and that's intentional. The first is meeting with the decision maker to set overall program objectives. What are the challenges within the leadership team? And again, target objectives for the leadership team, and even within, as I mentioned, specific leaders or challenges that maybe the CEO sees in these individuals who are participating, and give you some perspective is typically how I do it. The next is having an introductory session with the group, with the goal there being showing them an overview of the program, kind of what you're getting into, what to expect, and through that begin to develop win-win agreements and select partners in the process. Because as you guys recall, the assessments themselves have self-assessment from an individual as well as rater feedback from typically 3 employee partners giving them feedback, although they don't have to be employees. They can be co-workers, colleagues, or even superiors to the participants in the program. But the idea is they get feedback from 3 additional partners as well as their own self-assessment feedback. The next stage is the participant assessment pre-work, which after doing the first 2 steps, typically then you would go into having them complete the assessments online. And there are 2 schools of thought here. And for those of you who have delivered this before, you know the traditional approach is do all the assessments up front. And for instance, Mike Weaver and I have had extended debates about this issue. And where I've fallen on this is that I am tending now to deliver this as they complete each assessment as we go. So prior to the leadership values, they complete the Theory X, Theory Y assessment. Prior to employee involvement, they complete those assessments. So that prior is sort of homework prior to each session. They have to do one assessment that typically takes 20 to 30 minutes to complete. It eases the workload on the individuals. And the real argument behind this is if you do it all up front, you get a baseline of how they think right now and how they behave without any of the influence of the development program. If you do the individual assessments as you go, it's much more convenient for the participants, but you might get a participant effect in the results, meaning their results, the argument would be their results will improve a bit from where they really were at the beginning of the program. My sense is that the benefits of that outweigh that slight positive impact. And I'll also say that usually in the Teleo feedback, managers are getting a lot of different feedback, and they still get the point even if the areas are a little softer than they would have been. For instance, communication, maybe they're not big on exposure. Maybe their exposure score is slightly better, but in my experience, the problem doesn't just magically disappear because you're working on different areas of leadership, and individuals don't know the answers to the questions, and the assessments are designed such that it's not easy to just guess what the quote-unquote right answer is, even if they have some exposure to the program. So again, we could talk about the details of this another time, but I would typically recommend you allow them to complete the assessments as they move through the program, doing the assessment that is needed for the next workshop in advance, but just that one. The next is you conduct the participant workshop. So this is anywhere from a 2-hour to a 4-hour workshop session, anywhere from maybe 7 or 8 sessions total to maybe as many as 10 total workshop sessions with participants if you include the intro session and a graduation session along with the 6 assessments. That's a minimum of 8, and you can shorten that up or extend it, and I'll talk about those options in just a second to make those changes. The other element here that I think is important is doing a post-process assessment, and you don't have them complete all of the assessments, but certain assessments like the leadership values that looks at theory X, theory Y, and belief systems about people. Doing a pre and post there can show powerful change in people's attitudes. And I've even recently, what I've done is selected an assessment where they may have struggled, and from that I've had them complete that again. So maybe they scored poorly in communication. I had them do the values and communication. So in other words, a single participant, I have them all complete the values, and then I select just one additional assessment for them to take again in the post process, and that gives you a pre and post measuring key areas that can be very useful. But you don't have to do that. That adds a little complexity. You certainly don't have to. Number 7 there is a decision maker review at the end of the process. And again, I didn't mention that, but a mid-process decision maker review and a final review with the decision maker are appropriate. And in this, you can show pre and post results to show change, and composite results to show cultural, overall cultural issues that may be helpful for a decision maker to see. And then the last part, perhaps the most important, is to sell into the next process by suggesting that the raters who gave feedback to the participants actually are a good group of people to select for the next Achieving Leader program. Just, Sam, I think take a break there. Does anybody have any questions so far as to where we're at?
Okay, if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. I do not see any hands raised, so you're doing a pretty good job. Keep going.
Thank you, Sam. So let's look at an actual workshop. So if we look in here, conduct participant workshops number 4, I want to blow that up into this, what that workshop may look like if you're thinking about, okay, how do I do this? Now, what I'm doing here is a typical 4-hour, what I call a typical 4-hour session that I may use for Teleo, and that would be breakdown as follows. And this would be true for any of the 6 sessions, maybe not the introductory or the final session, but all of the 6 in the middle. Could be 30-minute of introductions. So in that, going around the table, doing typical introductions in session 1. But then in session 2, like we might do in an LMI program, we could do a goal review of goals they've set in the previous sessions. And again, you see there at the end, they do goal setting. So we dovetail that together one after another, just like in an LMI program. The other part to this is there's basically 2 components of a typical Teleo session if you deliver it the way Jay Hall envisioned it. One is there's a workshop or an exercise piece, and the other is a theory and results review piece. We've actually saved quite a bit of time because part of this theory and results review used to be almost an hour of scoring the instruments, which has now gone away. So you have some additional time there to perhaps either shorten it or provide more time for discussion, which in my experience, the more time for discussion is the better option. So 90 minutes of workshop would be doing one of the exercises. I'll share those exercises in each of the programs at a high level so you can get an idea of what that is. But it's an exercise to educate them on theory, and often the exercise is disguised. And the reason you do it first is you don't tell them much about the exercise or what you're trying to teach them. They dive into it, and by the end of the exercise, You then expose the rationale why you're doing it and walk them through it. Walk them through the purpose of the exercise. One example is there's an exercise where they do a series of discussions where you break the group into employees and managers, and in that they actually have 3 meetings where they're rotating through managers. And in each of the 3 meetings, the managers are behaving differently, either as sort of a tyrant taskmaster, or as a laissez-faire, very compliant manager, or third, as a much more collaborative, joint effort sort of manager. And in that, they think they are working on organizational problem solving, but in the end, they're actually providing feedback as to their experiences with the different styles of leader. And you chart that. It's amazing how it works out with every group. But there's an example where they're going through what would essentially be a 90-minute exercise, and at the end, boom, you sort of bring home the point, and they see the results that you put up on a post-it note chart, and it's very exciting. And then from there, you go into the theory and results review. The workshops within Teleo are, I'll go through this a little bit. Some of you are familiar with this, so I apologize for some of the repeat, but around leadership values is the Harwood dilemma exercise. I'm going to dive into this and show you a little bit. The Harwood dilemma is interesting. It was actually about a sewing factory in Appalachia, and I actually have modified the Harwood dilemma to be a technology factory, which modernizes a little bit but keeps all the elements in place. And it's the exact same story, just slightly modernized. And I find that groups that maybe are struggling to believe that a sewing factory in Appalachia still exists can buy into a technology manufacturing operation. And in that, they go through an exercise where they actually read the Harwood dilemma often before the workshop. You send it to them. They go through some thinking and reflection and making notes. Then they come into the exercise and go through it. Employee involvement, that workshop is, we do something called force field analysis. Some of you may be familiar with that, but there's a nice, the effective organization booklet that takes them through, and they do a problem-solving exercise using Lewin's force field analysis. Very exciting exercise. It's easy to facilitate, and I think it can be very powerful. The communication style, this is an interesting area. There's actually a for sake of partnership exercise video that they go through and see different communication styles. The challenge with this is that the videos are dated. There are videos for all these areas that were made in the 80s. The challenge with that is we've reached a point, and again, this is an area of some heated debate among those of us who use Teleo, is whether or not you can show a video that shows, for instance, people in a conference room and half of them are smoking from the 80s, where that's completely crazy for people to think about today. But the power of the videos are that you can actually get the videos, watch them yourself, and use that as a way to educate yourself on how to deliver the theory presentation. Often these videos are theory presentations that you can easily learn and with help from PowerPoint slides deliver yourself. And that's essentially what I've done. Now in the case of communication style and work motivation, there are some challenges there with what exercises to do, and there are ways to work around that with the group or break away from the workshop format. But it's something to be aware of here, and it's the same challenge with work motivation. And for instance, you can do different exercises like an extended goal setting piece around communication, or maybe even in work motivation, there are exercises where, for instance, in some of the LMI programs to go out and gather information about employees, that could be an exercise where they are getting information about employees and motivational needs, and then you have discussion about that. And do a little different exercise than the traditional Teleo exercise. Those are really the only 2 programs though where that's a challenge. The Power and Empowerment has, I mentioned earlier, that's where the exercises, the 3 sessions, and what you do is you say you have a group of 8 people in your program, you divide them up into 4 managers and 4 employees, you have the employees leave the room, and you show the managers that they will act differently in each of the 3 about 10-minute discussions. And then the employees rotate through a different manager, get a different experience each time, from a hard taskmaster to a laissez-faire easygoing manager to a collaborative manager, and they fill out feedback. They actually go through problem solving and document that, but they also then you slide in an employee feedback form and ask them to rate their experience, which they don't think much about. And at the end, you expose the reality that what they were really doing is going through an exercise of management style and different management styles and the use of power through those styles. The last one, leadership style, again, this exercise is great. It's a synthesis exercise where they actually look at their overall results and pull that together into a complete model. And there are actually some very nice forms available that allow them to graphically map out their results and see it in total from a model perspective, and then an exercise to work through essentially a personal development plan from that, and what they've learned from it, what they intend to do. The last area that is not necessarily a Teleo assessment, but is an exercise that there are materials to support from LMI, is the group decision making. This is a powerful tool to look at different types of decision making and effective decision making through something called the 4 C's that can be very powerful. And you actually use a popular movie from 1957, but it's rated 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, and it's still a popular movie called 12 Angry Men, which is very good. And you use that. They watch basically about a half an hour of that movie to go through the exercise, and that can be exciting for them and generally works pretty well. And then the last point I made is doing pre-post and composite review with the decision maker is kind of a part of the process, not necessarily a workshop, but an important part of the process. So those are actually 7 different areas where you can conduct workshop type exercises in a half-day format to deliver to participants in a very effective program. So let me take a look. I want to show you the leadership values example. First thing I want to show you is this. Sam, is that visible on the screen? A document?
Yes, it is.
Good. Okay. So what I want to show you first is this is, I'll get into the actual session in a minute, but I did want to share with you, this is an example of a document that I share with clients. This can be done pre-sale, and it's also useful to share with the team who will participate in advance of the initial session. That outlines the process, the agenda outline. You'll see some things here in the agenda that are additional, like the NASA moon survival, which is part of Teleo that you can include. And this one, this is a real client example that I recently delivered, but the effective time management is a session essentially, could use the My Time, but uses the same principles there to talk about time management, integrated into a 10-session process. And you'll see here, you can't read this on here, but I'm happy to share it, but you'll see process benefits, walks through some of the advantages of the process, takes them through the Achieving Leader model to pre-educate them a little bit on the structure of the model, and then shares with them each model within the Achieving Leader that we go through, from philosophy to employee involvement, shares a little bit about that. And this is a nice piece to help orient them to the process, share with them the structure, the leader, participant, and the developmental partner kind of approach, as well as the details of the process structure, goal setting, and their overall time commitment and what they can expect from the process. So a nice document that, again, I'm happy to share for you to use on your own if you choose to pursue this. Get rid of that. This is an example of the Hardwood dilemma. This is the case study, and you can see in this case I turned it into Harwood Electronics Corp based in York, PA, because I'm in Central PA, that's close by. So I made it very local, and actually the York corridor, we literally have electronic manufacturers there in York, PA. So it was a nice actual, just slightly modified version of the actual Harwood dilemma. And this is a PDF you can share with participants as a pre-work piece ahead of their work, and have them fill out this information. The other piece I'll share is, some people have asked me about PowerPoints and things like that, and I'm going to jump. I I won't go full screen on this, but you can begin to see here that this is the Achieving Leader leadership philosophy. So this is the Theory X, Theory Y, and some of the slides that I have related to this, giving them an outline, reminding them of what's in there, and then the Harwood case study, how to go through that, and they actually go through it in the session. And this is part of the initial 90 minutes where they would go through Harwood, have some discussion around that. Then we get into the Egon Brunswick's lens model and talk about that and present it and discuss it. And this is an example where there's a video that walks through this, but if you get the video and you watch it and you look at the slides, you can pretty quickly pick up and probably deliver this material if you haven't seen it before. It's not difficult to do. And I would welcome some collaboration on taking this, improving it, sharing these kind of things. But just so you can begin to see what this would look like, and then we expose them at the end. I actually tell them that the Harwood dilemma, what it really was about, and share with them that I modified it slightly to modernize it. And then we share the experiment results and the benefits of this. Pretty exciting. The Harwood dilemma is a powerful case that really gets people thinking about involvement and the impact of belief systems and attitudes on employee behavior and on management behavior, and the origins of this. The other thing I want to show you in this is actually the ideal, low achievers to the left, average achievers in the middle, high achievers in the end in terms of their Theory X, Theory Y profiles. If you're not familiar with Theory X, Theory Y, it's okay, because what I wanted to show you is then I do a composite here and actually share with the group what their results were across the group, and you see there's an average. The second set of bars show their averages versus the ideal, and then I show highs and lows. And we talk about how they compare. You can see this is a real group that recently went through this, and you can see there's strong Theory X and the ideal is Theory Y, and we had some good discussion around what does that mean and why, and as part of the process. So I like to show them those overall aggregate scores, but they don't share individual scores typically with the group. Some will, but not always. And so that's the slideshow. And let me go back to, there we go. So that's an example. So just quick, I don't see any hands up, but any questions so far about the process, standard process outline and that leadership values example? Everybody good so far?
Well, while we're waiting for some people to raise their hands, I have a couple questions.
Yeah. Sure.
How many individuals should you have in a group, and do you have a specific demographic breakdown of levels within the organization you would like to start with?
Yes, it's a good question, Sam, and actually it's something I didn't cover, so I appreciate you saving me on that. But I typically, if I'm looking at a Teleo program like this, I want to start with the CEO and their leadership team, if at all possible. I think that's the best starting point. From a group perspective, usually it's the entire leadership team. Probably an ideal size for a group as you get into this is, probably could go lower than this, but I'd say, a group of say 6 to maybe 12, potentially as high as 14 in a group. If you get up to those numbers, you may want to extend the time allotted, instead of 4 hours, maybe you go a little bit longer. Or if you're doing a standard 2-hour approach that I'll talk about in just a second, you may extend that a little bit. But that's kind of a range that I like. Is I'd like to get up to around 14. Anything beyond that, I may look at splitting the groups up. And the other thing I talked about earlier is the fact that if you start with senior leadership, you teach them the model and the language of teleometrics and the Achieving Leader. The partners who gave those leaders feedback, so each of, let's say, 8 leaders who participate, will have 3 developmental partners. So I actually have this group of 24 employees who usually, if you're at that level, those people are often in a management or supervisory capacity as well, or are potential future leaders in the organization. And those are a nice list of people to look at for a subsequent group after you do the initial senior leadership group, to bring them into the fold, teach them the model of good leadership, and to go through the whole process. Does that answer the question, Sam?
Yes, it does. We also have a question here from Valentina, and she asks, what video do you use for the Harwood dilemma?
For the Hardwood dilemma, there's a Teleo video that you can use with that walks through it. The challenge with the videos, there are a couple ways to deal with it. One is, Mike Weaver, for instance, has shown the Teleo classics, and he sort of positions it as this is a classic video, kind of like a Model T. But since the videos are from the 80s, that's often not appropriate. And if you, for instance, use Harwood as an electronics manufacturer, the video doesn't match. But with the power in the videos is that you have a nice organized presentation to see how do I present the Harwood dilemma and do it well. And between that and PowerPoint slides that I can share, you can do the theory presentation on your own, because that's basically what it's all about. Theory presentation and instructions on how to conduct the exercise are part of the videos as well. Valentina, does that answer your question? Okay. Good. Okay, moving on. So as we look at this, let's talk about some possible alternative formats.
Hold on. Sorry,
yeah.
I was saying Vince has a question, but I forgot to unmute my microphone. But I have now. Okay. Vince, you're live. Go ahead.
What's up, Vince?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go Penn State.
Yeah, Penn, buddy. Is there a plan to update the videos?
I don't. At this point, Sam, I think it's safe to say no.
All right.
I think
we can argue later, but I got the answer right now.
Yeah, and it's I agree with you. There could be alternatives to that, to remake the videos. It's just production quality videos like that are expensive, and if we can make Teleo popular and we have enough sales to justify it, I could see working something out to remake the videos. For now, though, Vince, I think there are enough materials, information within the videos that you can learn and deliver yourself, or alternative approaches to those videos, alternative exercises, pardon me, to that can be used. And that's why I mentioned the videos are a powerful training tool for you on how to deliver a given module. And between the facilitator's guide and the video, I think you can educate yourself on how to do it.
Yeah, I have them all, but
yeah,
they are dated. So the other thing is that these PowerPoints and stuff that you've made will be available as well, because I'm too lazy to make my own.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, Vince, and I'm happy to share the PowerPoint. What I would like to do, and I talk about this at the last slide, I'll just jump ahead. I would like to create a group of collaborators who are interested in this, like you, like me, like maybe Edward Holliday and others, who actually can begin to share these materials, revise, make suggestions for changes, and we sort of create like this I don't want to say public domain, but we create this shared set of materials that any one of us who are partners in LMI can tap into and use as needed, is what I imagine. That's what I'd love to see emerge. And then we collaborate, we share, we maybe create some frequently asked question type documents to help that we all contribute to and add, and we contribute our own PowerPoints that you guys develop, because there's a lot of creativity out there, and maybe I can give you a starting point, but let's take it from there and improve it.
Okay, one more question I have here is the current guides that are created for teleometrics. Will they work with these reports?
Absolutely, yeah. I'd have to think about all the guides that are in there, but yes, they will work. There are aspects of the full paper assessments. We've trimmed those reports down, but I'm thinking through all the booklets that are in there now. I think they should all work. I may want to look through them again just to verify, but most of those booklets are for exercises that support the assessments, and they don't directly relate to the assessments. Anybody else out there who's worked with, if I'm wrong, please correct the record, but I think they'll work fine.
Okay, and you're ready to go to your next session or section.
Okay, section. So let's talk a little bit about possible alternative formats. So you may have a client opportunity, a prospective client that is interested, but they're never going to do 4-hour sessions with their senior executive team over 10 sessions. They're not going to do 10 4-hour sessions. You can do a simpler 2-hour session, which I've done, where you eliminate the exercise. Now, there's a price to pay for that because the exercises are very educational, but in 2 hours you can focus on the model and the theory as well as the results and goal setting. So you could do a series of 8 to 10 2-hour sessions to tighten it up and make it maybe more palatable to a busy executive team that it won't buy into a 4-hour session. That's one way to do it. Pretty simple. You just remove that 90-minute workshop piece and the associated parts to that and focus on theory and results and goal setting. That works very effectively, and I've done that. The other is to conduct a shorter process using the half-day. So maybe you have a client that's interested in 2 or 3 sessions but not 10. And you could do that, for instance, by doing values and style, or two modules. You could do those 2 to get them thinking about their belief systems and then how those belief systems actually are, how they're realized in terms of behavior on the ground, can be powerful in a quick, maybe 3 session that way. So you have an introduction, you have them do the values assessments, and you have to do style, and you do goal setting around that, and boom, you have a nice, tight 3-session solution for clients. You may, in that, say, well, they're interested, but they don't want to do all 4 core of involvement, communication, motivation, and power. Well, okay. Depending on what they are describing as their challenges, maybe communication comes up. You could do values, communication, and style. It's not as powerful as a full model, but it's still powerful and can be very useful where you're looking for something smaller to go out and sell, or perhaps something smaller to do in a different way. Maybe for instance, a CEO group that you're getting together as a marketing exercise where there's a small fee, or maybe you do it at no charge, and you're trying to get them to buy into the full process. Potentially you could do this with self-feedback only, no raters, and do 2 sessions. You could probably do it as maybe 2 90-minute sessions, 2 1-hour sessions even. If you really wanted to, would be another way to shorten this up and expose people to the material without giving them the whole thing and then expand it into their senior team. The other is, sorry for the typo, but adding additional workshops in this. As you saw, I did time management, I did the NASA moon survival, are great ways to maybe break from routine and do a little different session. I'm sure many of you have done straight time management workshops, and you can insert that in here. The NASA moon survival, if you're not familiar with that, can be a powerful way to show them about resource utilization in a way that is fun and interesting with them, as you have maybe 2 teams working on NASA moon survival, that exercise, and the 2 compete with each other to see which one dies on the moon. The next area, the 2 I have down here at the bottom, I think are interesting as well. I've also done this, is where you tie in culture feedback surveys with the achieving leaders. So the idea here is we conduct an organization-wide survey of employees around, maybe using the O&I or using a survey based on the achieving leader model areas to get a bead on, or a sense of, where are the employees in their perspective as to organizational needs and where the weaknesses are. Then use the Achieving Leader program to focus on fixing them. You can deliver this in a couple of ways. One, you do the survey, you set overall objectives based on that. The other is you integrate the survey, especially if areas of the survey align with the achieving leader. You actually share the survey result in that session where they're getting their feedback. So you're looking at the overall survey says this, your own feedback says that. What do we do about it? How do we improve the culture of the organization? I'd call that more of a situation-driven approach. The other is a vision-driven approach, where the business has big ideas about where they want to go. They have a strategic plan that I hope you help them create. They establish a vision for the future and growth and all these good things happening, but you know as well as I do, if we're going to go from a $10 million to a $20 million organization over the next 4 years, the same leadership skills that serve us well at 10 million will not serve us well at 20 million. The leaders need to grow, and the Achieving Leader and other LMI programs are a great way to drive into a vision-driven approach to say, now that we have a vision, we have strategic objectives, we're working on that, we need to develop the team, and often that'll naturally come out of a strategic planning process, which is we need to do some leadership development, and boom, you can feed right into that. And if you're facilitating the planning sessions, it gives you a powerful insight into the way the business works, what the key issues are, getting to know the team, and then proposing the right solution, which could be the Achieving Leader. So exciting stuff here in terms of formats, a lot of flexibility. The other possibility is you do a one-time, a workshop, a 2-hour workshop using one of the LMI or one of the Teleo products, which we've talked about in previous sessions. So you have a lot of flexibility to take these tools and use them. Clearly, though, the power of these tools lies in the fact that delivered in total like this, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and I say that again here. Seeing feedback in all these areas often begins to show and point leaders in a direction where they begin to get what their weaknesses are, what are creating challenges for them, helps them see that sometimes employee problems as they see it are actually their own management problems, and improvement in their management will naturally resolve the employee problems, all the stuff you guys know about. And the objective feedback often can help to create that awareness that they need to begin to really work on change and set good goals. And the feedback also can help set better goals. So all these things are just some keys about why Teleo and LMI work great together, is a part of an ongoing relationship with a client to use this program along with LMI programs. All can work. And I'm, just some ideas for next steps. I'm here to help. I threw a lot out there today, some general ideas. Some of you may have used this or you're familiar with it. I hope for others I maybe created some thinking about possibilities. I'd like to really form a group of interested partners. We actually, through Factor Factory, have a platform where we can safely, privately collaborate together. If you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me, and it can provide us with a way to start to kick ideas around, to share these materials with a closed group of partners, and use that as a way to further develop what we're doing here with Teleo. I think the other thing that we mentioned is this repository. I think we can create a repository for shared materials that you can get to and use, and for people like Vince who will use it off the shelf, put sort of production-ready materials out there, and I'm happy to share everything I have in that vein. The other part would be looking at solution alternatives for some of the challenges, like the 2 videos in particular, communication and motivation. That's a challenge. For the other modules, you can work around it. There are solutions, you just learn how to deliver the theory. But for those 2, we need some solutions, and kicking ideas around in a shared group like this would be a powerful way to get the creative juices flowing and help us all think of better ways to do it. Another possibility for next steps here is that this group actually go through an Achieving Leader process for partners, and we as a group walk through it. I'm happy to facilitate that and let you experience the shorter version where we focus on theory and results and get your own feedback. That would probably have to be a paid option. I don't think it has to be a lot of money, but we'd have to offset some of the costs there. So I think that would be a paid option if you're interested in that. I would welcome feedback from partners on your thoughts about that, about maybe going through, let's say, maybe a 7-session process where you're actually completing the surveys, you're maybe reaching out and getting developmental partners through associates or even others you work with in the community. Might be a great way for you to learn and to spread the word about this. And additional webinars, as Sam and I have said, I'm happy to do additional webinars. At this stage, I'd like to know what you want to see, and from that get a better idea of where we might want to take this. And my last, geez, I'm sorry. My last thought to all of you before we open it up for questions again is we shared the links to the free assessments to give you an opportunity to complete any of the or all of the 6 yourself. And I was surprised that for the other assessments, beyond the one we shared the first time, I think we've had 1, maybe 2 people complete them, and that surprised me a little bit. I'd welcome feedback from you as to, is that just time? Do you not see value in it? You just didn't get around to it yet? You don't know how to get in? But I am curious as to that, if any of you have any thoughts about anything maybe we have not done as well as we could have to promote this. Let me know. Any thought? And I'll open it up from there for questions.
Okay, anybody have any feedback, any questions?
I see Jennifer hasn't gotten around to it yet. That's good. Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, Ray, you're unmuted.
Hi, it's Ray Stuckley. One, it's a time issue with me, not anything to do with what you did. I think it's great compared to when I've done this before, and now what you've put together. I think it's awesome. Part of our issue right now is looking at strategically where we fit this in. And I see it as right now something that we will, in 2017, as we're doing our planning shortly here, where we'll be looking at how we can integrate, probably doing the module approach to it with
Sure.
the ELD and EPP. For sure, I'm seeing possibly where I would want to do that. Right now, for us, it's, our focus is the LMI programs, because that's where Jeff's at and where we want to be going and where we're looking at with our associates in that. But I see this definitely as another approach that we would be integrating in probably the latter part of 2017.
Okay.
Where I see this. Now, I definitely, if there's an opportunity that I see with some, client or some possibility with some customer, we will do it, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that, where we're at and what we're doing, okay?
Good. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Anyone else?
I have some messages here. Let's see. Mike McGrail, Mark Way both say that they will complete it. They've just been really busy, and it was a time issue. Our fellow states that the value is there. I've been dragging my feet on the engagement. The group might help me move forward. Okay.
Okay.
Mike McGrail, our approach with clients is 1 year commitment to change and growth. Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. Donna Craig writes, would love to do the assessments again as part of the partner training. So no, and I think that's a great idea, is to go through this as part of the training. So it would be with integration. Okay. Alan writes, we'll be glad to do assessments, have done them before, just haven't had the time. It seems like we need to do a time management program, and then we can get people to do these. Let's see, Vince, you have your hand up, and you're unmuted, so what do you have to share?
You didn't give me a deadline, so.
Oh.
It's just a dream, Sam, without a deadline.
I did them before, the paper ones before. I got them buried somewhere, but I think it probably has something to do with my Johari window as far as telling you why I did do them anyway. But the other question I had too is, have you tried to do any of this in a public workshop, people from different companies?
I have, yes. I haven't done a lot of that, Vince. I did one. It was sort of, the funny part is, I will share with you the lessons learned from that. I did a group of, probably had 15 CEOs in the room. And this is early, so it was a few years ago, but it was early in my process of learning about Teleo. The mistake that I made with the group is I actually used the leadership philosophy, the theory X, theory Y with them. And the funny part was everybody in the room except one CEO was theory X. And what hadn't occurred to me was telling them all that they were negative, that they were theory X and theory X was negative, was not the best approach to convincing them to buy the program. The funny part, though, is the one who is theory Y is actually a current client, and we have a great relationship. So it was kind of funny. She was theory Y, and she loved it. But the theory X, I, for the most part, didn't hear from them again. So if you go into this and do a public process like this, I would use some of the, I would use examples like involvement or communication would be probably better. Perhaps leadership style, although that sometimes could produce negative results that wouldn't be as well received. But, communication, involvement, those would be great to use. Communication especially would be a nice tool that would get people thinking and interested in working with you.
I guess I beg to differ with you is that, you filtered out with theory Y and I think the people that are our best prospects are the ones who appear not to need our services in the first place. They're already good at what they do, but they're always looking to get better.
Vince, I won't disagree with you. It's just it's often a way, it could be the way it was delivered, but you do have to be careful, especially if you do philosophy. The reality is you talk about the untapped potential. That okay, 90% of you shows theory X. That means there's a lot of untapped potential. You have the potential to do more with less stress if we can examine this and help you think about how your own belief systems may actually be holding you back. To me, that's at the heart of LMI and what we're all about. So there is an argument to be had there. It's just how to present it. And in my infancy with this wonderful material, I obviously didn't do the best job with it. And maybe today that result would be different if I tried it again. So it's good thoughts, Vince.
I understand what you're saying, but then I take the path of least resistance and then say, let me do business with the people who want to do business with me first. And there's ones that I got to convince.
Maybe I misunderstood you then. You're saying it's a good vetting process to eliminate the people you don't want to work with. That could be.
If there was 10 people there and one of them was theory Y and I did business with that one, fine, let me do business with him and I'll worry about it.
Yeah, well, okay. So I like that, Vince. You're telling me that a 90% failure rate was actually a success. So thank you for the positive affirmation.
Yeah, because filtered out buy into it and actually get some results. Where the other 9, you're going to be fighting. They're going to be fighting you and say they're right, and and they're not going to want to take a look at anything else. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying. When you're new in a process of doing this, you're going to make some mistakes along the way, and maybe it could have been done a little bit differently or a different model. But I just public setting could lend itself to doing something, promoted by a chamber of commerce where you get a bunch of people in a room and you do a public setting as a way to promote this. And
that's a great application, Vince, to help spread the word, show them something a bit different than what they're used to. A lot of those chamber sessions, in my experience, tended to be focused on personality, Myers-Briggs, DISC, that type of thing, and there's value in that. I know most of you, if not all of you, use tools like DISC. This is a whole different, where DISC is maybe personality focused, often the Teleo is more process focused or behavior focused, and that can provide a little different perspective and allow you to create something that they haven't seen before. And as they show up, this is not something they will usually run into elsewhere. So it's very unique, and that can be exciting to deliver and generate business from.
Yeah, especially if you can do a 2-hour format.
Yeah, and I think you could easily do that for a chamber. Good.
Okay.
How are we doing, Sam?
We have a question. Go ahead, Vince. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
You done?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Ed Holliday sent a statement and not a question. It says, I am working on selling this and have one middle market firm and a huge financial services firm prospect. He said he sent you an email about it. So good. We got some business churning there. And let's see. I thought I saw another hand up, but maybe I was wrong. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Oh, wait a minute. Vince is back. Yes, Vince.
Is Lisa on the call?
Yes.
She owes me $1 million.
Oh, yeah?
Lisa, you're unmuted. Do you know you owe Vince $1 million?
Penn State, Iowa. And Trump took Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well,
Ouch. College football and political.
I said monopoly money, just to be clear.
I still haven't seen anything.
okay.
A lot of Monopoly games you got to buy. Okay, so that's all.
Get a little
Everybody
bit in there.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Sam. If there are any other questions, squeeze them in. If not, I was going to sign off and just thank everybody for your time again today. I know everybody's busy. It's great to see some of the feedback. The delay in getting some of you to complete the free assessments is just that you're busy. So that's great to hear. I'm glad to hear that you are all very busy, and I hope selling is going well and everybody's making lots of money.
Yeah, and we would like to have feedback from you. I don't care what it is. Send us some feedback so we can collect it and we can make the process even better. And let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, what we can do to improve it, what we can do to keep it moving forward. Biggest challenge we have is out of sight, out of mind, as some of you have already mentioned, that you need help in constant reminders. And I know that these webinars do create deadlines for people to do certain things. So let's see if we can move forward.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And I see that Mike McGraw made the comment about let's propose a possibility for an Achieving Leader program for partners. We will proceed with that. I think that's great. Sam and I can put something together, I think, Sam, and get that out. I like that idea and would like to put a proposal together and see what you guys think.
Okay. All right. Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great one.
You too. Take care. Good weekend, everybody.